morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the Infinite Way, where spirituality and humanity meet. And it brings me great pleasure to introduce to you for part two, Ms. Maria Muir. And from a young age, she has always danced to her own beat, outside the box. In her years, Maria played with crystals and earth gems, unbeknownst announcing her that they were waiting patiently to take her on a true role through her practice in service to others. Over the decades, while pursuing a mainstream career, Maria's soul cried out for more purpose. A successful 30-year career in the film industry left her feeling lost and unfulfilled, longing for more life. Her soul opened the door to pursuing healing arts and spiritual development. Native American teachings and plant medicines were the first participants in Maria's healing arts training and self-development. A sharp turn in Maria's private life created a pivot towards fully encompassing the healing arts and evolved into her mission to share knowledge and energy healing with others. Maria offers vibrational energy medicine both in person and remotely. Excited that science is now supporting ancient healing methods, Maria integrates cutting-edge technology with ancient knowledge and wisdom. Her extensive grassroots knowledge and intuition create an unprecedented alchemy of vibrational energy healing experiences through the person's unique expression, leading to healing on all levels of being. Maria's mission is to guide people seeking access to a higher level of being by helping people turn up their inner light and raise their vibration, creating a better environment and vision for her self-healing and life full of zest, luster, and vitality. Welcome, Maria Muir.
Thank you, Enolia. Thank you so much.
We're so excited to have you here for part two because we didn't even surface with what we wanted to talk about last time. And I am so excited to have you here because I know it's a broad field, but I want to talk to your love of biogeometry and your entrance point. Can you tell us what interested you in wanting to pursue and look to just even study biogeometry and what biogeometry is?
Well, that's a lot of questions. Well, it's that part about spirituality and science finally coming together. And while it's not the only place I found it, I really find that biogeometry is the best support of that. And what led me to that was a friend who was already studying with the Vesica Institute, which does the same, merging science and spirituality. And like, oh, you should take their crystal course. And so eventually, after she said it several times, I went on their website and looked, and I thought, well, the crystals already talk to me. I don't think I need to take this crystal course, but I'm interested in all this other personal wavelength and vibrational spectrum. And I started there with Vesica, which then led me to biogeometry. And Vesica also teaches the biogeometry courses. I went directly to the Kareems and was ready to go to Egypt, and then COVID hit. So I still have that on my to-do list, but really biogeometry has taken the ancient sciences, and I'm talking, it is all tested. It is 50 years of research that Dr. Ibrahim Kareem has done, starting with taking what the French started in the early 1900s and expanding it and giving measurements to things we can't really see and touch and feel. And there's special tools that do all this work that we're trained in how to use these. but they don't leave out the part of accessing spirit. It really is part of the whole foundation of the work. They are just really bringing science to those doubting Thomases that say,
Right.
oh, the Egyptians were, that's all myth and lore. Really not. They were really civilized, really smart, advanced culture that we're learning a lot from. And really grateful that Dr. Karim is bringing this to the forefront. And last year they had their 50-year anniversary, and still there's not a lot of people that know about it. So hopefully this next decade or so, you know, there's more and more people being trained across the world. They're worldwide. So that's how I found it. What is biogeometry? Well, the word biogeometry, it's like bio is the earth and metry is a measurement. And where everything has a wavelength. This pen has a wavelength. This cell phone has a wavelength. This rock has a wavelength. In fact, I have um, a screen share I'd like to do if I can really quickly. And
You
let's
absolutely
see if
can.
I
Let me give you the
have it.
actual.
Let's see if this just comes up really quickly. Did that come up?
Yes, it did.
Okay, so this is just a really quick, if we look at this one center point here, the one quality, this is spirit. This is access to the higher realms. This quality that Dr. Karim has learned to measure, he found it in all the sacred sites around the world. He went to, I don't know, there's got to be hundreds of them, right? Every single sacred site, this is what led him to this discovery. He kept finding these same measurements based on these tools that he's created, based on what the French started in the early 1900s. And they see similar tools on the walls in the Egyptian pyramids, that this ancient civilization was also using tools. We know about divining rods to find water and whatnot. But back to this slide. And then around the periphery is where all these abstract qualities, and we talked on episode 1 about sound and smell and color, and you can see it here. Here's at the left side this color spectrum, and here's sound, do re mi fa sol la si, it says, and then sweet to sour, all these smells and tastes, rough to smooth, and where they cross this one thick line here, these are all these abstract qualities on the periphery of the center that go back and forth, and all these things are interacting with the center. And
This is really, really dynamic because I'm reading about universal harmonics, a book by Michael Hayes, and he talks about how do re mi fa sol la ti is, you know, that string of music, right? Repeating 7 and then 8 comes right back to the beginning. And when you hit 8 and come right back to the beginning, that is an octave or a leap of orbit, you know? And it's just really interesting that you have all these leaps of orbit, you know,
yeah,
even though they might be represented by different things, it's so many parts that are
yeah.
in the respect of the number, all leading to that 64. And I know you're talking about.
And it is harmonics and resonance, and you know, Pythagoras really was the father of that. So you can see where these lines all cross. I think I had mentioned in the first episode that you can get to the same point by color or sound or smell, like can take you all to this same place. And that's really what this slide is showing, these crossing points of, where everything is meeting, or that a color or a sound or a smell can get you to the same place. And that's why I feel that there's so many modalities out there that are so helpful to raise the vibration, which is where we need to be to meet spirit, right?
Okay.
And also to heal the body, we have to get back to that central point. So everything has a polarity: left, right, up, down, except center. Center is the center is the center. You get to the center,
Neutrality.
guess what? There's another center. And you go to the center of
Yes.
center, and there's another center. It's not anything but center. There's no polarity to center. So the goal of biogeometry is balancing the imbalance and getting to center. And when we're at center, we're also accessing those other realms where conditions exist. I mean, we are this physical body in the 3D, right? And we have this energetic field that still, there's a lot of doubting Thomases about that. But there is this energetic field that's feeding our physical body. We've heard it mentioned as the software that feeds the hardware, or other descriptions.
A light
But
body. Yeah.
yes, and there's the Van Allen radiation belt that goes around the earth, similar in the torus, same way as our energy field goes around our
Exactly.
body, right? So science has shown that, and we are an image. We're the same as the earth. We're whatever percentage water you want to say today, 70, 80, 90% water. The crystals are that much water. Everything goes back, water is the life force. And so it's this modern age and this technology that is great. This had to happen, right? And our left brains came online so we can get to this modern age. But we've disconnected from that connection with the earth. And this is what we feel is making people sick. That there's so much distance now away from that connection, and we're on our electronics, and there's so much EMF that a lot of people, especially if you're sensitive, are getting ill, and at younger ages. And there's other reasons for that too, but we're just in a really, the earth and humanity are in this place of, if we don't realize it soon, we're going to be the next great extinction. The sixth great extinction could be humanity if we don't wake up.
So I want to talk about how important what you just said is, okay? And for those people who may not have followed you for the explanation, let's put it in practical terms, okay? So I lived in Arizona, and anyone who lives in Phoenix or downtown Arizona knows that. I mean, the EMF, the electronic or electromagnetic field, which is the field that comes off your cell phones. It is the field that comes off your laptops. It is the field that comes off for all of these different devices naturally. It is the field that comes off, your router. Okay.
Your
So
TV, your
we're
smart.
bombarded with, yes, we're bombarded with EMF, right? And none of us think anything about it, except for those who are sensitive to it, because I know people who are living in caves because they can't take the EMF. It's so thick in the city. Okay. And so you have all of these things, and then you think about the fact that the industry has decided to make everything wireless. So you have 10 times more devices that are now wireless. TVs weren't wireless before, but now they're wireless. So they're pulling EMF, right? Phones weren't wireless before, they were hardline, but so they're pulling EMFs, right? All these devices, and people are now carrying more than one phone, right? 2, 3, 4 phones. Every room has a TV in it. And then people are getting amplifiers for their routers because their router signal isn't strong enough in all parts of the house, and they want it strong because they don't want to. You are bombarding with electromagnetic fields that is taking you off balance. It is not positive energy. It is taking you off center to the negative. And we don't have anything that corrects it. And I want you to share with us how biogeometry impacts those kinds of fields.
Okay. So, and I want to say one more thing about all that much EMF. So, by itself, your computer's probably okay. By itself, your cell phone's probably not so bad. Talk on speaker, not with it up to your head. By itself, your Alexa might be okay, not horrible. But as you mentioned, we're bombarded with all these things. And I often say to people, do you plug your computer into a power strip in case there's a surge? Well, most people answer yes. Well, all of this electronics at once is like the surge to our body, because we are electric beings. We are, we're electric beings. We know that. The EEG measures the heart, the EKG, we know that we're electric beings. So why are we any different? Why do we not need to be plugged into a power strip that can, have the whatever, the I'm losing the word for it, but you know what I mean?
Power strip to protect us. Yes, got it.
And so that's the part that I find really interesting. And so biogeometry is a science of quality. It is the resonance of the wavelength that we're coming into tune with to get to that center. And I know that might be a hard concept for some people, but we're not actually changing with the tools. So there's a lot of tools that will come in and correct a grid or an imbalance, let's say in biogeometry. And I can maybe show you some if we have time later. But so let's just say a heartbeat or a wavelength, right? Boop, 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 boop. And here comes your EMF signal. Boop, boop, right? There's big spikes. Well, balance is this, right? The horizontal typically is the good and the vertical is typically the not so good, but in balance, it's okay, right? When you get these big spikes in either direction, how do we calm that down and bring it back to this? The tools that we use in biogeometry aren't necessarily changing this. What we're introducing into the field is a harmonizing quality that then this out of balance quality comes into resonance with. Does that make sense? Right?
It does.
So it's about
Absolutely.
resonance. I think in the first episode, I went like, and some things like, and you keep introducing, eventually, it comes back into.
It comes back into balance. Exactly.
So it's about flooding, and Dr. Kareem has given this center quality a name, and we call it BG3 because it's the harmonic of gold, ultraviolet, and infrared, I believe, are the three color qualities. And the color names came up early in the French research in the early 1900s, and they decided just to stay with that system. It doesn't really mean that exact color, but I will tell you, things that are of the color gold are really higher resonance than things that are brown. They just is. It holds this higher vibrational resonance. And so the idea behind biogeometry is to flood your space, your car, your body. There's certain jewelry that they've created that a lot of us wear that is this holding this resonance. So for me, I've always got something on me. or in my car is corrected, or my home is corrected. The other thing that I want to mention is there are grids that run throughout the earth, and everybody probably listening has heard of the term ley lines. Well, the ley line that the ancients discovered and built their sacred sites on top of these was typically an underground water crossing, and the vortex from that brought this energy up to the earth's surface. And
Right.
scientists have found these grids, right? This is something you can find that science has mapped. And there's the Hartmann grids that go north, south, east, west, the Curry grids that go northwest, southeast, northeast, southwest. So there are these grids throughout. Then there's Banker grids that go vertically this way. That's like a cube system. This has all been mapped by science. This is how trees and plants talk to each other through these ley lines and through these earth lines, and tree roots go not necessarily along that. But what we're finding is the EMF also travels along these pathways and carries with it this detrimental information. If you notice farmers, they notice where the cows go, and that's where they put their barn, because that's where the energy feels good. Cats, on the other hand, they like the detrimental crossing. So if you see a spot where a cat likes to sit, that typically is a spot you don't want to sit. Okay. In fact,
Wow,
I
that's
have a
interesting. I didn't know that.
fellow, yes, a
Wow.
fellow, it's a good to know. So get a cat and don't sit where the cat sits, or correct. But I have a fellow student that after taking some advanced work, he went home and corrected his whole house to a higher level. Now we're taking it to this higher level of BG3, and his cat was so upset she couldn't find a place to sit because everything was corrected and had to go outside. And I said, follow her outside and correct that too. So
Check that too.
the more that we can bring this BG3 energy, this centering, divine access energy into spaces, and it can radiate out, it's the same as being in your high heart, your universal light, and walking into the room with all that light and attracting that same light. Right.
Right.
So I don't know. Am I going over?
Not at all, not at all. And people need to hear this. And not only that, I want to state the obvious. It's biogeometry that corrects the negative EMF in homes. And that people are actually using biogeometry to make these corrections. And that's how they're creating balance. And I want, the reason why I brought this up is because I mentioned for the fact that I was in Arizona. And I mentioned the fact that, here are all these devices that are giving off EMF. And a person was visiting us, and they were sitting in the apartment, and they actually got a spontaneous nosebleed. And really, I'm a person who's very, very sensitive to energy. And when you really, really step back and looked, the energy was so thick that it was like you were walking through the EMF instead of, fresh air, everything else, and you just happened to be in your home. You were walking through grids of EMF everywhere. And then what happened was that I started noticing. How many things were. Now I'm going to go there. Okay. They had towers hidden in as palm trees, and so that you wouldn't notice them. They had so many electronics, and I'm picking out Arizona because we all know that Arizona is like a military place in space. So therefore, they keep a lot of things hidden. They had things hidden as in cactuses. You think it's a cactus, but it's not a cactus. It's a plastic cactus to look like a real cactus to hide cameras, whatever. Okay, I don't care about that stuff. But these all are emitting electronic garbage.
Right.
And so that made the area, I didn't realize at the moment, so toxic with EMF that people were physically reacting. Birds were dying when I really looked at that tower that was in the palm trees. Birds were dying at the foot of it. I was like, okay, how strong does this have to be that now it's a physical reaction? We actually left. We left it in Arizona like 3 months. And I don't want to say all of Arizona. It was in the heart of the city
Yeah.
at the maximum space of where everything's electronic,
Right.
you know? And the
Yeah.
other thing that I want to emphasize is that people have to slow down and notice because they're
Mhm.
not noticing. They're not seeing what's around them. They're not recognizing the fact that I remember being in California and I remember living in Santa Monica and that they had added telephone towers. They had added more towers. So I was hearing the actual buzz of the electricity constantly. And I was like, what's that sound? But you know what? It's so noisy, most people don't notice
Right. Right.
that there's an undercurrent of energy so loud and so strong that you hear it all the time. Like
And
a fan, like a background. Your thoughts?
yeah, it's like a beehive, like you walked into a beehive. And 5G, where it's going to be great, everything faster, 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 which, there's the whole other side of that. Like, why aren't we slowing down and stopping
No.
to smell the flowers and stopping to notice not just the buzzing of the 5G or any, of the electronics, but noticing the world around us? Or and sometimes we have to exist in 3D, and your job is in the city and all that, but when you get off work, go hug a tree, or maybe that tree in the city needs the hug. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's just like that piece of reconnecting, and we're getting further and further and further away from that. And those sacred power spots, we're creating a doorway for communication to these higher dimensions. And I want to say, you had said something earlier about biogeometry correcting, and I think they probably wouldn't say that themselves.
Okay.
They're not,
Or bringing it into balance,
what
maybe
they're
more. It's
doing it,
aligning.
they're flooding the space with the harmonic, and then
Mm,
that balance is correcting itself.
okay.
We're
Very.
opening the door for that balance to correct itself. Biogeometry is not doing it. I think that they would be really, and I want to be careful, and not misrepresent it. But I would probably feel that they would say they're not correcting, they're just flooding it with this energy of spirit, which you can look at it in a different way. You're flooding it with this energy of a harmonic, better harmonic is what it
Right.
is. It's the
Right.
harmonic of the angels singing versus the 5G going, eh. What do you want to listen to? So we do this by creating an angle. So that slide that I put up earlier, those lines were particular angles at a particular degree that can be measured. And so it really is, there's nothing. I've asked Dr. Kareem, like, do you get downloads or anything? He goes, everything is science and it's all measured. He didn't say that he didn't get downloads, but it's all substantiated with measurement. So because there are those doubting Thomases, and being a scientist, of course, he comes under fire, you know? And there's other doctors out there that have come under fire, and they just like, sorry, this is the truth. And we're going to stand in our power. And I'm so grateful for all of them. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Zach Bush and all these doctors that have said, I'm sorry, Western world, we need to tell you the truth, and we can't go along with what's being fed anymore. And so in biogeometry, we're actually measuring the earth, we're measuring things of the earth, we're of the earth. And, you know, the shapes, there's different shapes that are, let me see if I have, okay. I'll show you this one pendulum. Let me take my blur off, or can you see it?
Yeah, just
So,
no, just put it in front of you and you can see it. Not outside of you, but in front of you, directly in front of you, and we can see
yeah,
it.
it looks not blurry
Yes.
there. Okay, so
Yeah.
these different shapes are accessing different planes of existence. So this is called the Iccup pendulum, and then there's also this pendulum that is called the BG16 pendulum. But see the particular shapes that are accessing the emotional planes, the mental planes, the spiritual planes. I can't really point them all out here, maybe in another topic, or, you know, there's a slide that shows which shape is which. But for instance, this only, unless I calibrate it, this pendulum is only meant to measure BG3. So I can go around in my home and find that spot of center. So BG3 is the center, correct? I can find that spot. And what do we know are great amplifiers? Quartz crystals. Put your big giant quartz
Or
on that
crystals.
spot that's already, a friend of mine up in the mountains before, when I was there this summer, was opening a crystal shop. And her dream come true, a shop and her little studio for doing healing work. And I went in before, while she was prepping and doing the floor and whatnot, before she opened, and she told me where she was going to put things. And I went in and I go, can I measure? And I went and measured, and we found this great vortex spot that I'm like, I think you should put that giant quartz over here. And I'm talking like, we can't lift it. It's a giant not human size, it's short, but it's a big power crystal, and it's in the spot. When I went back and saw it after she'd been set up and open for a couple weeks, and she goes, look, she goes, anyone who comes in that is not in alignment cannot stand the energy and has to walk right out, because it's so powerful. So if you are in your heart
Yes.
space and walk into this shop, you know, and not everyone's conscious of it, right? But if you're holding some hucha, which we like to call in the shamanic realms, right? The heavy energy,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
um,
Yes.
that crystal sends you right out the door.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. You know, that's funny. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just saying, not that it wouldn't in a different part of the building, but I think that putting it on top of that power spot where there already was the good ley line really helped.
Yeah. And then, you know, a lot of us underestimate what the Egyptians brought to bear because that Ickham pendulum looks a lot like a sistrum and the way the sistrums were built all the way through. And for those people who don't know what the sistrum is, it's a device that was used to amplify or bring into resonance when toning and singing. You know, the Egyptians used it to sing with,
Right.
to open up vortexes and do all of the beautiful, wonderful, mystical things that they do. So it's interesting how we're still learning. We're learning in terms of every detail counts.
Yeah.
Everything counts to have step back and to really understand what every line, every every part, every aspect of what's brought to bear is meaningful.
Well, and you mentioned the vortex. So I do want to then go into that just for a moment, because
Yes.
this is the energy that is the center. And I think a lot of people, you know, that tornado vortex, that, you know, our water is another thing that we have a problem with here on the earth, that most people aren't drinking a good quality water. And let me tell you, bottled water is not it. You're drinking a plastic bottle of water, you're drinking plastic. And the microplastics that are in the earth right now, and this is a Dr. Zach Bush, you know, lesson I learned from him. Um, we're seeing diseases younger and younger ages because it's everywhere. Our dishwasher soap is wrapped in plastic, and our pods, because it's so convenient to just throw this pod into the washer, and our polyester clothing, wash it on cold water, people, because the hot water breaks it down into the plastics, and it's in our drinking water, and it's causing a lot of health problems. And so be really conscious of your plastic consumption, and there are conscious companies out there creating bar shampoo and things, the laundry soap that's just the squares, that's not in a plastic jug, or why does everything have to be so convenient and wrapped in plastic? And so
Right.
our water comes down the mountains and through all the rocks and the minerals and does this, right? And in a well system, we're lucky to get that nice, fresh, clean water. But in a municipality, that water comes down, it comes into a box. It gets treated with whatever chemicals, chlorine they're going to use. Then it comes through pipes, straight, turn, right angle, turn, and then it comes through your faucet. And it has lost its life force. That vortex is life force. And when that life force is depleted, it's not, you're not getting hydrated. And I was going to mention this earlier, and we lost our train there, or I did. But in the 5G, there is one of the hertz, and I want to say it's 68, but I'm not 100% sure on that, that is very dehydrating. So when we dehydrate, what happens? We're mummifying ourselves, right? So, and you're drinking water, but it's not really rehydrating. And so, Dr. Emoto did a lot of work on water and hydrogen water. And so you mentioned also earlier the number 8 in the harmonics. I'll tell you a little trick. You take your glass of water, your tea, your soup, anything you're going to put into your mouth, whatever it is, and you make 8 small, tiny turns to the right, clockwise. And you have just created a vortex in that liquid. Even
Oh,
your
wow.
food, even your food is somewhat got a liquid, your meat has water in it, your vegetable has water in it. So 8 tiny little notches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have just connected that to the center. You drink that water, I'll
Okay.
tell you, try it. It'll taste different. Do a taste test. Taste your regular water, then go turn it 8 little notches and taste it again. I want everyone to write Anolia and tell her what you found.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I actually went to the other extreme, which is I would put my water in one of the singing bowls, and then I would just play the singing bowl and give it frequency, and
Yeah.
then pour it out. There you go.
So, biogeometry is using shape and angles and colors and numbers to create this energy that is that vortex that brings us to center. And then center is that connection to the all, where everything is possible.
Yes, yes. Will you share just a little bit more about the personal wavelength also?
Yes. So we all have a signature, just like our fingerprints, right? We have an energetic signature. And personal wavelength is just a good name that's come up over the years. I think Eileen McCusick calls it the she has a different name, but it is our signature. So we use a pendulum, a neutral pendulum, or the ICUP pendulum. If you're just trying this on your own, really something that's quartz and has an energy is hard to learn this, but I highly suggest the Vesica Institute, I think it's vesica.org, has a really inexpensive, simple course you can learn personal wavelength. But what we're doing is using the tool to find the wavelength that is me, that's resonating with me. Then on personal wavelength, I can test. Once I know this is me, I'll bring into the field, let's say, a vitamin or a food. I happen to be allergic to sulfur, which is in a lot of things. So I test a lot of things. Can I eat this? And if I get a counterclockwise spin, the answer is no. So it is not mental dowsing. I am not asking a question. I am finding a wavelength. And what happens, this is like an antenna. Like I've just tuned in the radio, the staticky station, until I find the point on this string that is me. And it's a little hard to demonstrate without, maybe we could
It's
figure that
okay.
out for another time. But
Yeah.
this is me. And if I held it over your hand or body, it's not going to swing at all because it's not you. So we have a neutral position. We have a clockwise position, which is a strengthening. And the counterclockwise position we look at as weakening the physical body, the physical system, and the energy, the whole everything on all levels, mental, emotional, vital, physical, and spiritual. On all
Right.
those planes of existence, I'm measuring on that, especially if I'm using this tool, because this tool is really accessing all those planes. The neutral pendulum, we're just, it's a little more neutral, but it's a little easier if you're just starting out to use the neutral pendulum because it doesn't carry as much energy. But,
Right.
and you would think I would have one right here, but I don't, sorry. But it's just plain plastic, clear plastic, like plexi, like this. This one is not
Yeah.
one, a round ball. And you can find them. But it's really, you're tuning in to your wavelength, and then it's just a good tool for, is this a good place for me to be in the house? It's one of the first ways we can find grid lines, actually, because we're a biological system. So if I'm swinging in a clockwise and we know this is good, and all of a sudden I step on a spot in the floor where it goes neutral or goes counterclockwise, that's not a good spot for me. Like, go step where the cat sleeps and see how your pendulum reacts.
Right.
So the personal wavelength is
Right.
really your signature, and everything has a signature. The tabletop, the rock, the things that humanity views as inanimate objects. Well, that wood was a living tree at one time, and that rock came out of the earth and still has a connection back to that central vortex. So we interact with those things all day long. And the personal wavelength is a really good tool to just, what works for me and what doesn't. I was in the store the other day. I'm like, oh, I don't have a pendulum on me. So I took my necklace off and I was looking for, an oil treatment for my hair. I'm like, oh, is this one good? And the girl stocking the shelves was, I could see her looking out of the corner of her eye and trying not to ask me what I was doing. But I don't care. It's just like, if someone asked me what I was
Exactly.
doing, it would be a longer day at the grocery store.
Oh
We're
my goodness.
really, these shapes are producing a vortex that's producing that energy that is center. And, we're creating this balancing energy through these vortexes. And so, it's like that stream crossing, and that energy gets pulled up because of that vortex and comes out of the earth going, here I am, put the church right here.
Right.
Or
Right.
Stonehenge, or whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
Those people weren't plugged into electronics. They could feel.
Everything. And then you actually have a heightened sense of awareness too, because nature is our battery. And when we actually acknowledge and we're in nature all the time, you actually are more sensitive and you have a higher energetic, I don't know, I think it recharges the Taurus, period. And so therefore that Taurus is also expanded in nature nature, not confined like it is when you're in the house. And so with that expanded towards your feeler, your personal space is expanded so wide that you are sensitive to everything,
Mm-hmm.
everything. And so you're going to know the difference. You're
Yes.
absolutely going to know the difference.
I've had to back away from people sometimes where I just can't be in their field because it's too chaotic.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
happy, I like them, I'm having a conversation, but sometimes I just have to take a step backwards, you know, because it's just too much, or I gotta go.
Gotta go, gotta go. I can't believe it's been almost an hour already. I mean, it went so quick. It was like, wait, but wait, there's
Wait,
more.
I know there's so much more.
Is there any last words you'd like to share or say to our audience on this topic?
Yes, I would like to say, if it interests you whatsoever, the simple, and I know money's hard right now in this, world that we're in, and inflation has really got a lot of people caught up in not being able to do outside work and training. But um if you want to know personal wavelength, I think the course is only about 300 or 350 USD from the Vesica Institute. And even if you can't afford that, it's worth just going on Dr. Gilbert's site, vesica.org, and reading some of his free articles or watching some of his free YouTubes. And the same with biogeometry, biogeometry.com. And just there's lots of free articles and some downloads and things that you can do to help your family. I know a lot of
Mhm.
people, would just love to know if they're feeding the right vitamin or food or drinks to their kids. There's lots of information out there just on those, besides those two sites, but that's the ones that I've worked with and through for biogeometry. And biogeometry is worldwide. They teach classes in Singapore, in Europe, in the States, not in Mexico yet. I'm trying to get them here. But
Uh-huh.
in Egypt, and because it's so young, um, the instructors aren't multiples, and they're really strict. They only used to do courses in person. You couldn't take biogeometry online. Then COVID hit and they figured a way, because like the shamans, started speeding things up. It's really important that we can capture this light and hold this light and be this light in however way we're going to get there. It doesn't have to be through biogeometry. It doesn't have to be through shamanism. So find what works for you. These are some
Mhm.
beautiful, beautiful tools. And
Right.
I know that you, Enolia, have beautiful, beautiful tools that you offer up as well. So shine your light, people. That's what I can say. Find your light, go hug the tree, and be the light. Really, it's about being the light.
Well, actually, beautiful, beautiful Maria, you are my tool, because this is why I want people to learn. And this is why I have you here, because beautiful people like yourself who can share this information to the masses, as you just did, it's so important. We hopefully have piqued your interest. We hopefully have allowed you to just expand just a little bit more in your knowledge about this topic. And I'm going to tell and share with people that you are a phenomenal resource and teacher also, because I've been blessed by your teachings. And I thank you, thank you, thank you, teaching me one-on-one and introducing me to my personal wavelength and just a few little tips here and there. So I how to get in contact with you, how to reach you, and to keep an eye on what you're doing and what.
The
So you
best
share
way,
your contact, yeah.
yeah, on my website, because we are, a worldly group here, mariamuir.com. It's MARIA muir.com. And you could shoot me an email. I'm happy to send any links if anyone has any questions or just questions about the courses. Vesica gives you a year to do their course, and then you can download all the audio files and have it forever. And the biogeometry only comes up a couple of times a year. But if you have any way to learn it, the more people that we can get harmonizing the earth, we just might have a chance of that golden age. Wouldn't it be beautiful in these electronic cities or whatever it is that they're trying to build, and we're zipping through the sky like the Jetsons, that we're putting out BG3 while we're zipping through the sky in our little jetpack.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your energy, your medicine. This has been another episode of The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. Thank you, Maria Muir.
Thank you, Enolia.
And we'll see you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.